In 1956, a 26-year-old guy from Nebraska started an investment partnership with $105,100. Seven of those dollars were his own. The rest came from family members and friends who trusted him enough to hand over their savings. He had no fancy office, no Bloomberg terminal, no team of analysts, just a simple idea that he applied with almost robotic consistency for the next 60 years. By 2024, that original partnership had grown into something worth over $130 billion, not because Warren Buffett was the smartest person in the room, not because he had access to information nobody else had, because he understood one mathematical concept more deeply than almost anyone alive, and he refused to interrupt it. That concept was compound interest, and here's the thing that should make you genuinely angry. This concept is so simple, it can be explained to a 10-year-old in about 4 minutes, and yet almost nobody learns it before they're 30. And by 30, the most valuable decade of compounding is already gone. I'm Matt. I eat too much pizza, and I get irrationally upset about financial concepts that should be taught in school but aren't. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how compound interest works mechanically, why it feels like nothing for years and then suddenly feels like everything, the one number you need to know to calculate how fast your money doubles, and why starting 5 years earlier is worth more than investing twice as much 5 years later. Okay, so forget investing for a second. Let's start with something simpler. A pond. You have a pond and you put one lily pad in it on day 1. Each lily pad doubles every day. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 4. 4 becomes 8. On day 10, you have 512 lily pads. On day 20, you have over 500,000. On day 30, you have over 1 billion. The pond is completely covered by day 47. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. On day 46, which is one single day before the pond is completely covered, it is only half full. 1 day before the end, half empty. If you were a lily pad farmer watching that pond for the first 30 days, you would think absolutely nothing is happening. The growth looks flat, boring, pointless. And then somewhere around day 40, you'd start to get genuinely concerned about the situation. This is how compound interest works. The first years feel like nothing. The last years feel like magic, and most people quit during the nothing years without ever seeing the magic. Here's how the math actually works. You have money sitting somewhere, let's call it your principal. That money earns a return. At the end of the period, that growth gets added to your principal. Now your new principal is slightly larger. Next period, you earn growth on the slightly larger amount. That slightly larger growth gets added again. Each cycle the base grows. Each cycle the growth grows. Not because you added more money, because the math is building on itself. Let's make this real with numbers. You put $10,000 into an account earning 7% annually. That's a reasonable conservative long-term average for a stock market index fund. Year 1, you earn $700. Total, $10,700. Year 2, you earn 7% of $10,700, which is $749. Total, $11,449. Year 3, 7% of $11,449, which is $801. Total, $12,250. Notice what's happening. You're not adding any new money, but the amount you earn each year keeps growing. $700, then $749, then $801. By year 10, that same $10,000, without you adding a single additional dollar, has become $19,671. By year 20, it's $38,697. By year 30, it's $76,122. By year 40, it's $149,744. You put in $10,000 once. 40 years later, the math has turned it into almost $150,000. And here's where it gets genuinely beautiful. If you had put in $20,000 instead of $10,000 at the start, After 40 years, you'd have about $299,000. Doubling the input, doubled the output. Makes sense. But if instead of doubling the input, you just started 10 years earlier, put in $10,000 at age 20 instead of age 30, by age 70, you'd have roughly $296,000. Same result. Starting 10 years earlier produced almost the exact same outcome as doubling the amount you invested. Time and money are interchangeable ingredients in the compound interest recipe, and time is the one ingredient you cannot buy more of later. Matt needs you to sit with that for a second. Starting 10 years earlier equals investing twice as much. The 20-year-old with $10,000 and patience is equivalent to the 30-year-old with $20,000 and the same patience. Now let's talk about the rule of 72. This is the single most useful mental shortcut in personal finance, and almost nobody learns it before they need it. Take the number 72, divide it by your annual interest rate. The result is approximately how many years it takes for your money to double. 72 divided by 7 equals about 10.3 years. At 7%, returns your money doubles roughly every 10 years. 72 divided by 8 equals 9 years. 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2 years. 72 divided by 1, which is what a typical savings account was paying for most of the last decade, equals 72 years. Your money doubles every 72 years in a standard savings account. Matt finds this information upsetting. You should too. Let's run the doubling math with a real scenario. You have $10,000 at age 25. At 7%, returns it doubles every 10 years. Age 25, $10,000. Age 35, $20,000. Age 45, $40,000. Age 55, $80,000. Age 65, $160,000. One investment of $10,000 at age 25 becomes $160,000 by retirement with no additional contributions. Now here's the beautiful part. That last doubling from $80,000 to $160,000 happened in the same 10 years as the first doubling from $10,000 to $20,000. Same time. 5 times the dollar gain. The machine doesn't speed up in terms of time. It speeds up in terms of dollars. Each doubling produces the same percentage but dramatically more actual money because the base is so much larger. But here's what happens when you wait 10 years to start. You have $10,000 at age 35 instead of age 25. Age 35, $10,000. Age 45, $20,000. Age 55, $40,000. Age 65, $80,000. You end up with $80,000 instead of $160,000. You lost one entire doubling. You lost $80,000 of wealth, not by losing money, but simply by starting 10 years later. No bad decisions, no market crash, no financial mistake, just 10 years of waiting. $80,000 gone. Now let's add monthly contributions, because this is where most real people actually build real wealth. You're 25 years old, and you invest $200 a month into a low-cost index fund, averaging 7% annual returns. Over 40 years, here's what happens. Total money you actually contributed, $96,000. Total value at age 65, approximately $528,000. The $96,000 you put in grew into $528,000. The extra $432,000 came from nowhere except math. Now let's say you wait until you're 35 to start, and then feel guilty, so you invest twice as much. $400 a month for 30 years to make up for lost time. Total contributed $144,000, more than the person who started at 25. Total value at 65, approximately $486,000, less than the person who started at 25 with half the monthly contribution. The person who started later put in 50% more money and ended up with 8% less wealth. They tried to buy back time with money, and time refused to be bought. This is the single most counterintuitive fact in all of personal finance. Starting early with small amounts beats starting late with large amounts almost every time. Let's talk about the two enemies of compounding because they're sneaky. Enemy number one is fees. A 1% annual fee on your investments sounds harmless, but over 40 years that 1% fee can consume 25% to 30% of your total returns. On a $500,000 portfolio outcome, that's $125,000 to $150,000 in fees. Gone. Quietly. Without any drama or obvious moment where you felt the loss. This is why low-cost index funds with expense ratios below 21% exist, and why Matt will not stop talking about them. Enemy number two is interruption. Compounding requires continuity. A $50,000 withdrawal at age 50 isn't just $50,000. At 7% returns with 15 years left, that $50,000 would have become approximately $138,000 by age 65. You didn't withdraw $50,000. You withdrew $138,000 from your future. Here's a simple framework for actually using compound interest instead of just understanding it. Step 1. Start today. Not next month, not next year, today, with whatever you have. Even $25 a month invested today is worth more in compounding terms than $100 a month invested in 2 years. Step 2. Automate and forget. Set up a recurring automatic investment into a low-cost index fund. Turn on dividend reinvestment. Then do not look at it daily. Checking your investment account every day doesn't help the math. It only helps the anxiety. Step 3. Apply the rule of 72 to everything. Every financial decision that involves rates, divide 72 by the rate and ask yourself, how does this affect my doubling timeline? A credit card at 24% interest is doubling your debt every 3 years. Step 4. Protect the chain. Treat your long-term investments like they do not exist until retirement. Build an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash, specifically, so that life emergencies never have to interrupt the compounding chain. There's a woman named Linda who started investing $150 a month at age 22 into a basic S&P 500 index fund. She never increased the amount, never made a spectacular trade, never read a single financial news article. She just set it up automatically and genuinely forgot about it for 30 years. At 52, she checked the account for the first time in years out of curiosity. It had grown to approximately $340,000. She had contributed $54,000 over those 30 years. The math had contributed the other $286,000. She described the experience of seeing that number as feeling like someone else had been working a second job on her behalf every single day for 3 decades without ever asking for a break or a vacation. That is exactly what compound interest is. A silent partner who works every single hour of every single day on the only condition that you don't interfere with the work. Warren Buffett made approximately 99% of his net worth after his 52nd birthday, not because he suddenly got smarter after 52, because the compounding chain he started at 26 had been running for 26 years at that point, and the later doublings are where all the dramatic dollar growth lives. He didn't become a better investor. He just had enough runway for the math to do what the math always does when you leave it alone long enough. 3 things. Remember these. Time is the most expensive ingredient in compound interest. Not intelligence, not income, not market knowledge. Time. And the only way to have more of it is to start sooner. Every year you wait has a compounding cost that increases as you wait longer. Fees and interruptions are compound interest working against you instead of for you. Minimize both with the same obsession you apply to growing returns. In the boring middle is where most people quit and where all the real growth is hiding. The lily pad pond looks empty for 30 days and then fills in 17. The investment account looks flat for a decade and then does things that feel unreasonable. Stay in the pond. Lazy investing built more fortune than stock picking. Compound interest is not a strategy. It is a mathematical law. Apply it early, apply it consistently, and the law does the rest.